Right, I've tried doing this a couple of times and I keep running out of time to go through the song. So in this one I'll put in the chords for the song, and then I'll go through the song. The song I want to do is "Have You Ever Seen the Rain" by Creedence Clearwater Revival, John Fogerty. So I'll go through the different chords that you'll need for it first, and then I'll do the song separately and we'll go from there. So the songs that you'll need, the chords that you'll need are an open C, and you'll need a G chord. I will show you the open G. There's also a barred G here, as mentioned. I will use that one as well. The reason I use the two is sometimes this one's easier to get to, and sometimes this one's easier to get to. So I do use both of them, in fact, in this song. You'll also need an F chord, which is there. This is again the barred shape that we mentioned before. An E minor chord, which is very similar to the major chord, just with one finger in a different place. And then you'll need an A minor chord. Okay, so the chords we've done so far, or the chord shapes, there's the E major, the A, and the D. As we've mentioned, they're movable. Movable shapes. Some of well, in fact, of the ones that I've been through there, the G is obviously not movable. The C can be moved if you mute this. There's a string, your excuse me, not the most comfortable positions. Your G string is under there. Now when you play it normally, boom boom boom, that's fine, but when you move it up, this note stays there. So what you've got to do is just flatten your middle finger a little bit, just to mute it. And then you can move up that C chord just as you would any other chord. Okay, so the C chord, the shape of that, you take your three fingers there. Your first finger goes on the first fret on the B string. Your G string is open. Then your middle finger goes on the second fret of the D string, and your ring finger goes on the A string at the third fret. And that's your C chord. Now what I do, including on this song, but what I tend to do is I slot so that the E note is not wrong for this chord, but it's a little bit too heavy. What I tend to do is I put both of these fingers on the bottom two strings, and that's a G, so that's an okay note for a C chord. A C chord is C, E, and G. C major chord. So I tend to put those two there, and you may see I pop. Sometimes I'll pop my fingers up just for effect, just to give the chord a different feel and a bit of movement instead of just going all the time and getting bored. Just sort of like that, just towards the end, just to give the chord a bit of a change, bit of movement. The other open chord is a G. So this is your middle finger goes on the G note, goes on the E string, it is on the G note, goes on the E string at the 3rd fret. Your first finger goes on the A string at the 2nd fret, and then the rest of your notes are open until you get to the E string again, which you put your ring finger on at the 3rd fret. So, boom, boom. There we go. Now there is a bar chord here as well, but I find this again, similar to the D chord, is quite a nice acoustic sort of sound to it. So, and you'll find quite often the G and the D chords are used together, so it can be useful if sometimes difficult to learn to swap quickly between those two chords. What I tend to do is I use this ring finger here as a bit of a pivot point, so I rotate my fingers around that. Although it is moving one string in, I try and use that as a bit of a pivot point to get to that chord from one chord to the other, although all your fingers do have to move, so it is hard to get those chords shifting nicely. Okay, so your next chord is an E minor chord, and like your E major chord, you can shift this up by creating a bar. So this is your major chord, that's that L shape again. Right. And all you do to make this a minor chord is you drop off your first finger. And quite often if I'm playing this quickly, and I will do this in this song, I just use my first and second fingers to play that. But if I'm moving it up, I'll generally use my 4th finger and my pinky to move that up, and that's often because you shift to another minor chord that's up there, which means I'm in the right position, or if I move to another major chord, my fingers are somewhat in the right position. So if I'm barring that chord instead of doing that, depends what I'm doing, sometimes I do that. I'll put those there. So yeah, in your open position, so it's the same as the major chord, just without that. So your middle finger goes on the A string at the 2nd fret, and your ring finger on the D string at the 2nd fret. And as I say, sometimes I'll play it that way as well. I think the reason I play it sometimes that way is to move up, but anyway. Your other chord you'll need is an A minor chord, which you play. Here's your A major chord with all your fingers on that 2nd fret from the D string. So from A, boom, boom, boom. And then to make that a minor chord, you just, this actually requires a little bit of reorienting your fingers. So your first finger goes on the 1st fret of the B string. Your second finger goes on the D string at the 2nd fret, and your ring finger goes on the G string at the 2nd fret. So basically you've dropped from having all of your 3 fingers on the 2nd fret, the one that's on the B string, you just sort of turn your fingers around and you put it on you're just dropping that So I guess how I do that quickly is I lift my my first finger, I shuffle my 2 remaining fingers across the string, across one string, so that they're on the D string and the G string, and then I place down my index finger again at the 1st fret on the B string. A minor, and that can be moved up as well. You put your bar across the chord, across all the frets, and then put your middle finger on the next fret up, and then you place your two fingers on the next fret just down next to it, so that one you can move up as well. There we go, and now I'll get on with the song.